The Force binds all things in the Star Wars galaxy. But in a different world, in a different reality, there exists another kind of power. One that judges the wicked and punishes the guilty without mercy. What happens when the spirit of vengeance crosses dimensional boundaries and arrives in a society where heroes wear their sins like badges of honor? The night sky over Mizudafu, Japan erupted in flames that defied all natural law. It wasn't an explosion. It wasn't a villain attack. It wasn't even a quirk malfunction at one of the nearby hero agencies. What tore through the fabric of reality above the city's downtown district was something far older, far more primal than any superhuman ability cataloged by the Hero Public Safety Commission. Civilians scattered as a motorcycle wreathed in hellfire materialized 30 feet above the intersection of Might Avenue and Heroics Boulevard. Gravity asserting itself only after the dimensional tear sealed behind it. The bike, if it could be called that, crashed onto the asphalt with enough force to crack the street in a spiderweb pattern, yet landed perfectly upright, wheels still spinning, flames dancing across chrome that seemed to drink in the darkness rather than reflect the city lights. Astride the motorcycle sat a figure that would haunt the nightmares of Japan's hero society for weeks to come. A leather jacket, worn and scorched. Chains that rattled with the screams of the damned. Gloved hands gripping handlebars that pulsed with an inner heat. And where a head should have been, there was only a skull, a human skull engulfed in flames that burned with hellfire, orange and red, and something darker that hurt to look at directly. Empty eye sockets blazed with judgment incarnate. Ghost Rider had arrived. The spirit of vengeance turned its flaming gaze across the street, taking in this new world with ancient awareness. Skyscrapers adorned with massive digital billboards displaying hero rankings and merchandise advertisements. People with strange physical mutations walking openly, horns, tails, extra limbs, skin in every color imaginable. This wasn't his world. This wasn't his America. But sin was universal. And this place reeked of it. A hero patrol arrived within 90 seconds. Impressive response time. 3 mid-rank pros in color-coordinated costumes, their quirks already activated. The leader, a woman whose arms had transformed into crystalline blades, stepped forward with trained authority. Unidentified individual. Power down your quirk and identify yourself. This is your only warning before we classify you as hostile. Ghost Rider's skull tilted, studying her. The hellfire around his head flickered, and when he spoke, his voice resonated with the screams of 1,000 tormented souls, a sound that made the heroes instinctively step back. I am vengeance. The words dripped with supernatural weight. I am the Ghost Rider, and I have come to judge. The Crystal Hero's confidence wavered. Her scanner visor, standard issue for patrol heroes, was going haywire, displaying error messages and conflicting readings. No quirk signature. No biological markers. The being before her didn't register as human, villain, or Nomu. Her quirk analysis database had nothing. Command, we have an unknown entity at Might and Heroics. Requesting immediate backup and quirk analyst support. This isn't in any database. Before Command could respond, Ghost Rider revved his motorcycle. The engine roar sounded like the gates of hell opening, and hellfire erupted from exhaust pipes, scorching the street black. He didn't attack the heroes. They weren't his targets. Not yet. His hollow gaze swept across the city skyline, drawn by something the heroes couldn't sense. Guilt. Mountains of it, buried beneath hero smiles and PR campaigns and public adoration. The rider could feel them all. The heroes who let civilians die to boost their rankings. The commission officials who covered up scandals. The celebrities who wore capes while their souls festered with rot. And somewhere in this city, burning brighter than all the rest, was a sin so profound, so deeply rooted, that it called to the spirit of vengeance like a beacon. Domestic abuse. Child abuse. A family shattered by ambition and pride. Endeavor. Ghost Rider's hellfire blazed brighter, and with a roar that shook windows 3 blocks away, he launched forward. The motorcycle tore down the street at impossible speed, leaving a trail of flame in its wake. The hero patrol tried to follow, tried to intercept, but they might as well have been chasing a meteor. Within seconds, the flaming skull had disappeared into the urban maze of Japan's premier hero city. In his luxury penthouse across town, Enji Todoroki, known to the world as Endeavor, the new #1 hero, stood before floor-to-ceiling windows, surveying his domain. All Might's retirement had left a void, and he had filled it. Everything he'd worked for, sacrificed for, done had led to this moment. The top of the hero rankings. The symbol of victory. His name on every billboard and news broadcast. The fact that his youngest son still flinched when he entered a room was a small price to pay. His phone buzzed. A priority alert from the Hero Commission. Unknown threat downtown. High-level quirk. Potential S-class villain. Heroes struggling to identify or contain. Endeavor's flames ignited across his shoulders, a reflexive response to the thrill of battle. This was perfect. A major villain threat on his second week as #1 would cement his position, prove to the doubters that he was worthy of the mantle All Might left behind. He had no idea that what was coming for him wasn't a villain. It was judgment. If you want to see more epic crossover stories like this, smash that subscribe button and drop your dream crossover titles in the comments below. Want to see Spawn in Demon Slayer? Wolverine in Attack on Titan? Let me know. And don't forget to like and share this video with your fellow anime and comic fans. Now let's continue this story. The Hero Public Safety Commission's Emergency Response Center had never seen readings like this. Across a wall of monitors, analysts scrambled to make sense of the data flooding in from every surveillance system, Hero Patrol, and quirk detection grid in Mizurufu. The entity, they refused to call it a villain yet, protocol demanded evidence of criminal intent, was moving through the city like a heat-seeking missile, but its target remained unknown. Track lost again on 7th Avenue. Satellite can't maintain lock, too much thermal interference. Ma'am, we're getting reports of screaming, but not from people, from the air around this thing. Commission President Keed Yamamoto stood at the center of the chaos, her expression carved from ice. She'd held this position through the decline of All Might, the rise of the League of Villains, and the exposure of hero killer Stain's ideology. She'd navigated scandals, cover-ups, and the delicate balance of keeping society's faith in heroes intact. But this was something outside her carefully constructed framework. Classification, she demanded. Her chief analyst, a man whose quirk allowed him to process data at superhuman speeds, shook his head. Impossible to determine. It's not reading as organic matter. Not fully. There's biological components, but they're corrupted, transformed. The energy signature doesn't match any known quirk type. It's like trying to classify fire itself. Every quirk can be classified. Not this one. He pulled up thermal imaging that showed a humanoid shape composed entirely of flame and something darker. Whatever this entity is, it's operating on principles outside our understanding of quirk science. The motorcycle it's riding doesn't have an engine, not a mechanical one. It runs on, we don't even have terminology for this. Yamamoto's jaw tightened. Unknown variables were dangerous. They couldn't be controlled, couldn't be spun for public consumption, couldn't be filed away in neat reports. Containment options? Every hero we've sent near it reports the same thing, an overwhelming sense of dread. Not fear. Dread. Like they're being weighed and measured. 3 pros have already withdrawn from pursuit, claiming psychological distress. 1 is demanding immediate therapy. Weaknesses. Unknown. Motivations. Unknown. Destination. The analyst hesitated, then highlighted a path on the central map. The entity's erratic route through the city suddenly made sense when plotted over time. It wasn't random. It was hunting. And the search pattern was tightening around a specific district. The luxury residential area where most top-ranked heroes maintained private residences. Yamamoto's blood went cold. Get Endeavor on the line. Now, Endeavor was already in the air when the call came through. His flames propelled him over the cityscape in a blazing arc, eyes scanning for any sign of the reported threat. Below, civilians pointed upward with phones raised, still adapting to seeing him instead of All Might soaring overhead. The weight of that comparison burned hotter than any quirk. Endeavor, this is commission control. Break off your pursuit immediately. He nearly ignored the order outright. Since when did the number one hero take commands during an active threat? But Yamamoto's tone carried an edge he recognized. Not panic, but something close to it. Explain. The entity appears to be searching for something. We have reason to believe it may be targeting high-profile heroes. Your signature is the largest in your district. You could be drawing it directly to civilian-heavy areas. Then I'll lead it away from civilians and neutralize it. Simple. Effective. Exactly what the number one hero should do. Endeavor, we don't know what this thing is capable of. I didn't become number one by running from unknowns, Yamamoto. He cut the connection and increased his speed, flame output maxing, as he rocketed toward the last reported sighting. The night air rippled with heat distortion around him, his quirk Hellflame painting the sky orange. Somewhere below, that thing was tearing through his city, and he would. The motorcycle erupted from a side street directly beneath him. Endeavor had milliseconds to process what he was seeing. The bike defied physics, riding up the side of a building at a 90-degree angle, hellfire trailing behind it like the tail of a comet. And atop it, the rider, a skeleton wreathed in flames that made Endeavor's own quirk look like a candle next to a furnace. Their eyes met. Endeavor had stared down all for one. He'd faced Nomu, engineered to kill. He'd looked into the eyes of High-End and not flinched. But when Ghost Rider's flaming sockets locked onto him, something ancient and primal in Enji Todoroki's soul screamed in recognition. This wasn't a villain. This was something worse. This was judgment. Ghost Rider's motorcycle launched from the building's surface, defying gravity entirely as it soared through open air toward Endeavor. The number one hero reacted on instinct, unleashing a torrent of flame hot enough to melt steel. The fire blast would have incinerated any normal opponent. Ghost Rider rode through it like it wasn't there. The hellfire didn't burn him. It couldn't. He was hellfire given form. The spirit of vengeance crashed into Endeavor midair with the force of divine retribution. They plummeted together, smashing through the rooftop of a closed shopping complex and into the empty atrium below. Endeavor rolled to his feet, flames igniting across his entire body in a defensive inferno. Across the rubble-strewn floor, Ghost Rider dismounted his motorcycle with deliberate slowness. The bike remained upright, engine idling with that horrible screaming sound, flames licking at the polished floor. "You will stand down," Endeavor commanded, voice projecting the authority of Japan's number one hero. "Whatever your grievance, whatever villain sent you, this ends now." Ghost Rider's skull tilted, and that voice, that terrible multi-layered voice of the damned, echoed through the empty building. Grievance. The word dripped with dark amusement. "I have no grievance, Enji Todoroki. I am not here for villainy." He took a step forward, chains materializing in his hands, wreathed in hellfire. "I am here for you." Endeavor's flames burned hotter. "You know my real name. Industrial espionage? Personal vendetta? It doesn't matter. You've made a mistake targeting me." "No mistake." Another step closer. "Your son, Shoto. Your wife, Rei. Your eldest, Toya." Each name struck like a physical blow. "I know every sin you've buried beneath your hero license. Every moment of pain you inflicted. Every scar you gave them." For the first time in years, Enji Todoroki felt something he'd almost forgotten. Fear. "How do you?" "I am the Ghost Rider." The flames around his skull blazed white-hot. "And the guilty always burn." The temperature in the atrium spiked as two sources of flame faced each other, one born from genetic mutation, honed through years of brutal training, the other pulled from the deepest pits of hell itself. Endeavor's mind raced. This thing knew details about his family that had never been made public. The Hero Commission had buried most of his domestic history under layers of NDAs and carefully managed PR. Rei's hospitalization was explained as a mental health crisis. No mention of who drove her to it. Toya's death was a tragic training accident. Shoto's burn scar was never discussed in interviews. Yet this flaming skeleton knew everything. "You have no authority here," Endeavor growled, flames coalescing around his fists. "I am the #1 hero of Japan. I've saved thousands of lives. Whatever you think you know about my personal life is irrelevant to." Irrelevant. Ghost Rider's voice dropped to a tone that made the building's foundation vibrate. "You broke a child, shattered his mind, drove your wife to madness, neglected your other children like they were failures in an experiment." He raised one flaming hand, and the hellfire chains writhed like living serpents. "And you call yourself a hero?" Endeavor launched himself forward with an explosive burst of flame. His fist, superheated to temperatures that could reduce concrete to slag, rocketed toward Ghost Rider's skull. It was a blow that had stopped charging Nomu mid-stride, that had shattered through reinforced villain hideouts. Ghost Rider caught his fist. The impact shockwave shattered every window in the atrium. Endeavor's flames roared against the spirit of Vengeance's hellfire, two infernos colliding in a spectacular display that lit up the night sky. But Ghost Rider didn't budge, didn't even lean back from the force. "Your fire," Ghost Rider squeezed, and Endeavor felt his bones creak under supernatural strength. "Is nothing compared to the fires of hell." He yanked Endeavor forward and drove his skull directly into the hero's face. The headbutt sent Endeavor crashing through 3 support pillars. He tumbled across the floor, blood streaming from his broken nose. A rare injury for someone who'd conditioned his body to withstand extreme temperatures. He staggered upright, flames reigniting defensively. This wasn't possible. His quirk was top tier, his combat experience second only to All Might's. He'd trained his body beyond human limits, mastered flame control to an art form. Yet this entity had stopped his strongest punch like swatting a fly. "What are you?" The question came out more ragged than he intended. Ghost Rider advanced slowly, deliberately, his chains dragging across the floor and leaving scorch marks in their wake. "I am vengeance for the innocent. I am judgment for the wicked. I am what heroes like you fear." He swung the chain. Endeavor dodged, but barely. The hellfire-wreathed chain smashed through the concrete where he'd been standing, leaving a crater that glowed red-hot. He countered with a flash-fire fist, condensing his flames into a spear of concentrated heat and thrusting it toward Ghost Rider's chest. The spirit of vengeance grabbed the flame construct, grabbed it with his bare hand and crushed it like paper. "Impossible," Endeavor breathed. "Your flames are born of anger, of ambition, of a broken man's desperate need to surpass a symbol he could never match." Ghost Rider's empty eye sockets blazed brighter. "My flames are born of divine punishment. They burn the soul, Enji Todoroki. And yours is already screaming." The chain lashed out again, faster this time. It wrapped around Endeavor's torso before he could react, binding his arms to his sides. The hellfire burned through his costume, but not his skin. Not yet. This wasn't meant to kill him. It was meant to hold him. Ghost Rider dragged Endeavor across the floor like a caught fish, pulling him close until they were face to face, skull to bloodied face. The heat radiating from the spirit of vengeance made even Endeavor's conditioned body sweat. "Do you know why I'm here, hero?" Ghost Rider's voice was almost gentle now, which somehow made it more terrifying. "Do you know what drew me across dimensions to you?" "I don't care about your delusions," Endeavor snarled, struggling against the chains. His flames intensified, trying to burn through the hellfire bonds, but they only tightened in response. "I've done what was necessary. Everything I did was to create the perfect hero, to fill the void All Might would leave." "You tortured a child." The words hung in the air like an executioner's axe. "You took a 5-year-old boy," Ghost Rider continued, his voice building with terrible weight, "and subjected him to training that left him vomiting, crying, begging you to stop. And when he failed to meet your impossible standards, you struck him. Again and again. Shoto needed to be strong. He needed a father." The chains constricted, and Endeavor gasped as supernatural force compressed his ribcage. Not enough to break bones, but enough to make breathing difficult. "Your wife tried to protect them, tried to stop you, and you drove her to such desperation that she scarred her own son just to escape the sight of you in his face." Ghost Rider leaned closer, hellfire dancing between them. That woman is locked away in a hospital, her mind broken by years of your abuse. Your daughter grew up invisible, desperate for attention you never gave. Your son Natsuo can't even look at you without hatred. And Toya, don't. For the first time, genuine emotion cracked through Endeavor's voice. Don't you dare. Toya burned himself alive, trying to earn your love. A child so desperate for his father's approval that he pushed his quirk beyond its limits and died screaming. Enough. Endeavor's flames exploded outward in a desperate burst of maximum power. Prominence burn, his ultimate technique, unleashed at point-blank range. The atrium filled with a miniature sun of concentrated flame. The walls melted. The ceiling began to collapse. Glass, metal, concrete, everything within 50 feet turned to molten slag. When the flames cleared, Ghost Rider stood untouched. The chains had disappeared, but only because he'd released them willingly. His leather jacket didn't even have scorch marks. He simply stood there, an inferno made flesh, utterly unaffected by the number one hero's strongest attack. Endeavor fell to his knees, exhausted. He'd poured everything into that blast, enough power to level a city block. And it had done nothing. You cannot harm me, Enji Todoroki. Ghost Rider's voice was almost sad now. Because I am not flesh to be burned. I am judgment itself. He reached down and grabbed Endeavor by the throat, lifting the massive hero off the ground with one hand. And now, you will face what you've done. Endeavor's eyes widened as he realized what was about to happen. He'd heard stories, old legends, comic books, supernatural myths he'd dismissed as fiction. But looking into those empty, flaming sockets, he knew with absolute certainty what was coming. No, please. Look into my eyes. I'll change. I'll do better. I've been trying to atone. Look into my eyes. Ghost Rider's skull blazed with hellfire, and Endeavor couldn't look away. Those empty sockets became windows into something beyond comprehension, beyond pain, beyond mercy, beyond anything human. The penance stare had begun. The world disappeared. Endeavor's body hung limply in Ghost Rider's grip, but his mind, his soul, was somewhere else entirely. Somewhere worse. He was 5 years old again, small and powerless, standing in a training room that smelled of sweat and fear. But he wasn't himself. He was Shoto. He could feel his son's tiny heart hammering in his chest, feel the exhaustion in muscles that had been pushed for hours beyond their limit. Again, his own voice commanded from above, cold and merciless. Young Shoto's legs trembled as he tried to summon ice, but nothing came. The quirk was depleted, his body at its absolute limit. I said again. The slap came hard enough to knock the child off his feet. Endeavor felt it. Asterisk truly felt it asterisk, the way Shoto had felt it. The sting across his face. The confusion of why Daddy was hurting him. The desperate need to please, to be good enough, to make it stop. But it never stopped. The penance stare forced Endeavor through every training session, every brutal hour, every moment of violence inflicted on a child who only wanted his father's love. He felt the vomit rising in his throat after being pushed past exhaustion. Felt the terror when training went from strict to sadistic. Felt the small, fragile hope dying a little more each day. Asterisk. Why doesn't Daddy love me? What did I do wrong? Asterisk. The child's thoughts were his thoughts now, and they broke something fundamental in Enji Todoroki's soul. But the penance stare wasn't finished. The scene shifted. He was Rei now, his wife, standing in their home and watching her husband obsess over quirk marriages and genetic potential like she was livestock being bred. He felt her initial love curdling into fear. Felt the moment she realized the man she'd married was gone, replaced by something monstrous wearing his face. He felt every argument, every threat, every time Enji's voice rose and her body flinched in anticipation of violence that sometimes came and sometimes didn't. The uncertainty was its own form of torture. Then came the breaking point. Endeavor experienced it through Rei's eyes, Shoto's face looking up at her, so innocent, so much like his father. The pressure building in her mind like steam in a sealed container. The kettle boiling. The desperate, irrational thought that if she could just remove that resemblance, maybe she could breathe again. He felt the boiling water in his hand, felt the moment of madness overtake reason, felt the horror immediately after as Shoto screamed, as the skin blistered, as her son's eye turned red and damaged, and she realized what she'd done. But it wasn't her fault. It was his. It had always been his. Asterisk, I broke her. I destroyed my own wife's sanity. Asterisk. The truth crashed through Endeavor's consciousness like a tidal wave, but the penance stare dragged him deeper still. He became Toya, a young boy with a powerful fire quirk and a desperate hunger for approval. Training alone in the woods because father said he wasn't good enough anymore, wasn't the right combination, wasn't what he needed. Push harder, burn hotter, prove your worth. Endeavor felt the quirk tearing at Toya's body from the inside, the genetic incompatibility that made every use of the flame agonizing. Felt the skin cracking, the blood seeping, the pain that would have made any rational person stop. But Toya didn't stop because stopping meant admitting he wasn't special, wasn't loved, wasn't worth his father's time. If I can just show him, if I can just be strong enough, he'll look at me again. The flames built higher, too high. The body couldn't contain them anymore. And in the final moments before everything burned away, there was only one thought. Asterisk, Daddy. I'm sorry I wasn't good enough. Asterisk. Endeavor screamed. Not with his voice that was locked away in the physical world, but with his soul. The penance stare showed him what he'd tried so desperately to bury, that Toya's death wasn't an accident. It was murder. Slow, deliberate psychological murder committed by a father who valued genetics over his own son's life. The visions continued, relentless and merciless. He felt Fuyumi's loneliness, her desperate attempts to hold a broken family together while being invisible to the one person whose approval she craved. He felt Natsuo's growing hatred, the way it festered from confusion to disgust to outright loathing. He felt every moment of pain he'd inflicted, every scar physical and psychological, every instance where he'd chosen ambition over humanity. And through it all, he felt what they felt, the hope that maybe today would be different, that maybe today their father would be kind, that hope dying a little more each time, the gradual understanding that they were not children to be loved, but tools to be used in his obsessive quest to surpass all might. Thousands of moments, thousands of small cruelties and large ones. Years of abuse compressed into seconds of absolute, inescapable truth. The penance stare didn't just show him what he'd done. It made him experience it from the perspective of his victims. Every emotion, every pain, every shattered dream and broken spirit. It bypassed all his justifications, all his rationalizations about creating the perfect hero. It showed him the raw, unfiltered truth. He was not a hero. He was a monster who wore a hero's costume. In the physical world, Ghost Rider held Endeavor's body as it convulsed. Tears streamed down the #1 hero's face, something his children had never seen, something the public would have thought impossible. His mouth opened in silent screams, his quirk flickering on and off erratically as his mind shattered under the weight of his own sins. The spirit of vengeance felt no satisfaction in this. The penance stare was not revenge, it was truth. Pure, unfiltered, inescapable truth. After what felt like an eternity, but was only 90 seconds in real time, Ghost Rider released the stare. Endeavor collapsed to the ground like a puppet with cut strings. His flames extinguished completely. The first time in decades he'd lost control of his quirk like that. He lay there trembling, broken not in body, but in something deeper. Something that might never heal. Ghost Rider stood over him, the hellfire around his skull dimming slightly. You have felt their pain, he said, his voice echoing through the ruined atrium. You have lived their suffering. You know now, with absolute certainty, what you have done. He paused, watching the broken hero shudder. The question is, what will you do with that knowledge? Endeavor couldn't answer, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but lie there as his mind tried to process what had just happened. Every breath was agony. Every heartbeat a reminder of the hearts he'd broken. He'd wanted to be the greatest hero. Instead, he'd become the worst kind of villain, the kind that hurt those who trusted him most. Ghost Rider's motorcycle roared to life behind him, called by some supernatural connection. The spirit of vengeance walked toward it, his judgment delivered. But before he mounted the bike, he turned back to the broken man on the floor. Your society calls you a hero, Enji Todoroki. They put your face on billboards and give you awards. But your family knows the truth. And now so do you. The motorcycle's engine screamed, and Ghost Rider prepared to leave. But the night's judgment was far from over. Endeavor was not the only guilty soul in this city. The Hero Public Safety Commission's emergency bunker was in full crisis mode. President Yamamoto stood before a live feed of the devastated shopping complex, watching as emergency responders cautiously approached the building. Smoke poured from shattered windows. The entire structure had been compromised by extreme heat, walls melted, support beams warped, the roof partially collapsed. And in the center of it all, Japan's #1 hero lay motionless. Get medical there now, she commanded. And I want a full media blackout. No footage leave that scene. No witnesses go public. Classification: Hero Incident Level Black. Her assistant hesitated. Ma'am, there are already videos circulating online. Civilians recorded the fight from surrounding buildings. The entity Endeavor's prominence burn, all of it. Yamamoto's expression didn't change, but her knuckles whitened as she gripped the edge of the console. Then we control the narrative. Endeavor was responding to an S-class villain threat. He protected civilians at great personal cost. He's a hero who sacrificed himself too. He's moving. All eyes turned to the screen. Endeavor was stirring, slowly pushing himself to his hands and knees. But something was wrong. His movements were mechanical, broken. His flames, always present, always burning, were completely extinguished. The #1 hero looked like a man who'd aged 20 years in 20 minutes. The medical team reached him, but he didn't acknowledge them. He just knelt there, staring at his hands with an expression that made even hardened pros uncomfortable. One of the medics tried to check his vitals. Sir, we need to get you to a hospital. You may have internal injuries. I killed him. Endeavor's voice was hollow, barely audible over the comm system. I killed my son. The medic froze. Sir. Toya. I killed Toya. I killed him, and I told myself it was an accident, but it wasn't. I pushed him. I broke him. I murdered my own son, and I called it training. Yamamoto's blood ran cold. This wasn't injury talking. This was confession. On an open channel, with dozens of heroes and support staff listening. Cut that feed, she snapped. Cut it now, and get him sedated before. But Endeavor was still talking, his voice growing louder, more frantic. Shoto. God, what did I do to Shoto? He was 5 years old. 5. And I hit him. I hurt him. I made him vomit from exhaustion, and I called it necessary. I looked into his eyes and felt nothing but disappointment that he wasn't strong enough. The heroes surrounding him exchanged horrified glances. Some were already backing away, their professional instincts warring with a growing realization that they were witnessing something unprecedented. A top hero's complete psychological breakdown. Ray. I drove her insane. I took a woman who loved me, and I tortured her until she couldn't tell reality from nightmare anymore. She scarred our son because of me. Because I made her life so unbearable that burning a child seemed like less pain than looking at his face. Endeavor stopped talking. One of the senior heroes present tried to take control. You're in shock. You need medical attention, and I need to burn. Endeavor looked up, and his eyes were wild, haunted. I need to burn for what I've done. That thing, that skull it showed me. It made me feel everything they felt. Every moment. Every pain. And I can't. I can't. His flames ignited again, but they were erratic, unstable. They flickered like a dying candle, instead of the confident inferno that had defined his hero career. In the commission bunker, Yamamoto was already moving. I want every recording of this confiscated. Every witness signed to NDAs. Endeavor is to be transported to a secure medical facility under psychiatric evaluation. As of this moment, he is on indefinite leave from hero work. Ma'am, the entity that attacked him is still at large. I'm aware. She pulled up tracking data, but it was useless. Ghost Rider had disappeared from every sensor simultaneously, as if he'd simply vanished from reality. Deploy all available heroes to locate and contain it. Authorization to use lethal force if necessary. Should we issue a public warning? Yamamoto considered. A warning would cause panic. But not warning could cost lives if this thing attacked again. And based on what it had done to Endeavor, reducing the number one hero to a broken, confessing wreck without apparently causing any physical injury, traditional hero response might be useless anyway. Issue a generalized threat advisory. Unknown villain class entity with psychological quirk capabilities. Citizens should remain indoors and report sightings immediately. She turned to her intelligence chief. And find out everything you can about what Endeavor was saying. If there's any truth to those accusations, we have a bigger problem than one rogue villain. Across the city, in the exclusive district where heroes' families lived under assumed identities for safety, Shoto Todoroki was awake. He sat on his dorm room bed at UA High School, scrolling through social media with growing unease. The school had implemented a media blackout after the first reports of the incident, but information always found a way. Encrypted messages from classmates, leaked videos, eyewitness accounts spreading faster than the commission could suppress them. His father had fought something downtown, something that had left Endeavor. The man who never showed weakness never lost control. Broken and confessing to crimes Shoto had lived through but never spoken about publicly. His phone buzzed. A message from Fuyumi, his older sister. Asterisk, are you seeing this? What's happening? They won't let me near him. Asterisk. Then Natsuo. Asterisk good. Let the bastard suffer. Asterisk. Shoto didn't respond to either. He just stared at a grainy video someone had captured from a high-rise window, a flaming skeleton on a motorcycle, holding his father in the air, their faces inches apart. The image quality was terrible, but the body language was unmistakable. His father was terrified. Shoto had never seen that before. Not when facing All for One. Not during the high-end fight. Never. What could make Endeavor afraid? A knock on his door. Todoroki? You awake? Izuku Midoriya, his classmate and friend, peeked in. His expression was concerned, analytical, the same look he got when studying villain attacks or hero strategies. I saw the reports, Midoriya said quietly, stepping inside and closing the door. Your father, is he? I don't know. Shoto's voice was carefully neutral, the tone he always used when discussing his father. Whatever attacked him wasn't a normal villain. No kidding. Midoriya pulled up his own phone, showing a clearer image someone had enhanced, and posted to an underground hero analysis forum. Look at this. No quirk signature. Not even human biology, according to the sensors that got close enough. It's like something from a horror movie just appeared in the middle of Mizudafu. Shoto studied the image. The flaming skull. The supernatural fire. The chains. It looked like something from Western folklore or comic books, not the kind of villain Japan's hero society was designed to handle. What do you think it wanted? Midoriya asked. Justice. The word came out before Shoto could stop it. Both of them froze. What? Shoto set his phone down, his heterochromatic eyes. One gray, one turquoise, distant. My father isn't a good man, Midoriya. I've told you that. What I haven't told you is how bad he actually is. He touched the scar around his left eye unconsciously. If something appeared in this city to punish guilty people, he'd be on the list. Midoriya sat down slowly, processing this. Are you saying you think this thing is targeting heroes who've done wrong? I'm saying whatever that creature is, it knew exactly who to find first. Before Midoriya could respond, the dorm's emergency alert system activated. Present Mix's voice crackled through the speakers, trying to sound upbeat, but failing to hide the tension. Attention, UA students. As a precautionary measure, all dorms are now under lockdown. Do not leave your rooms. Do not approach windows. Faculty will provide updates as the situation develops. Stay safe, stay smart, stay plus ultra. The comm clicked off, leaving an uncomfortable silence. Shoto walked to his window, looking out over the city. Somewhere out there, that flaming entity was still moving, still hunting. And somehow, Shoto knew, with absolute certainty, this wasn't over. His father was just the beginning. Ghost Rider tore through the streets of Mizudafu like a wraith, his Hellfire motorcycle leaving scorched pavement in its wake. The city's lights blurred past him, but his supernatural senses cut through the urban chaos with perfect clarity. He could feel them, pockets of guilt scattered across this society like infected wounds. Heroes who'd let civilians die to preserve their rankings. Commission officials who'd buried evidence to protect profitable hero agencies. Teachers who'd abused students under the guise of tough love. Villains were obvious, their sins worn openly. But it was the hidden guilt, the respectable evil, that drew Ghost Rider's attention like a beacon. This world had built an entire industry around heroism, commercialized salvation, and in doing so had created perfect conditions for rot to fester beneath the surface. The spirit of vengeance pulled to a stop atop a high-rise overlooking the city. Below, hero patrols scrambled in disorganized patterns, searching for him with technology that couldn't detect what he was. Helicopters circled. Spotlights swept. It was almost amusing. They were trying to hunt judgment itself. His flaming skull tilted as a new sensation washed over him. Not guilt this time. Fear. Genuine, desperate fear coming from somewhere nearby. The innocent in danger. Ghost Rider's purpose wasn't just punishment. It was protection. The motorcycle roared to life, and he launched off the building's edge. 6 blocks away, in a narrow alley between 2 commercial buildings, a young woman ran for her life. Mika Yoshida, age 19, quirk, photographic memory. Not a combat quirk. Not even particularly useful for hero work. Just a mutation that let her remember everything she'd ever seen with perfect clarity, including the financial documents she'd accidentally discovered while interning at a major hero agency. Money laundering, embezzlement, funds meant for disaster relief being siphoned into private accounts. She'd taken photos, planned to report it to the commission, but someone had noticed. Now 3 men in dark suits, enhanced with quirks and clear intent to silence her permanently, were closing in. Nowhere to run, girl. One of them, his arms transformed into blade-like appendages, grinned as he blocked the alley's exit. Just give us the phone, and we'll make this quick. Mika backed against the wall, clutching her phone to her chest. I sent the files already. Killing me won't stop. We'll take our chances. The blade-armed man lunged. And then, the alley erupted in hellfire. Ghost Rider crashed through the wall, literally through the brick and concrete as if it were paper, his motorcycle landing between Mika and her attackers. The 3 men stumbled back, their confidence evaporating as the flaming skull turned to face them. What the hell? One started. Ghost Rider's chain lashed out, wrapping around the blade-armed man's throat and yanking him off his feet. The man screamed as hellfire began spreading across his body, not burning his flesh, but something worse. Burning his soul. Your sins. Ghost Rider's voice made the walls vibrate. I can see them all. The other 2 attackers tried to run. One had a teleportation quirk, disappearing in a flash of light. The other had enhanced speed, becoming a blur as he raced toward the alley's entrance. Neither escaped. Ghost Rider's free hand shot out, and hellfire erupted in a wall of flame that sealed both ends of the alley. The speedster crashed into it and fell back, his clothes smoking. The teleporter reappeared inside the barrier, his quirk unable to bypass supernatural fire. You killed for money, Ghost Rider said, dragging the blade-armed man closer. A hero who discovered your employer's crimes. You made it look like a villain attack, but you felt her fear, heard her beg, and you smiled. No, wait, I was just following orders. Look into my eyes. The penance stare took him instantly. His body went rigid, eyes wide in silent horror as decades of violence and murder played out from his victims' perspectives. When Ghost Rider released him, the man collapsed unconscious, drool running from his mouth, his mind potentially broken forever. The other 2 were next. The speedster tried to fight, launching himself at Ghost Rider with velocity that would have killed a normal person. Ghost Rider caught him mid-charge with one hand around his throat, lifted him effortlessly, and delivered the stare. The man's scream was brief before unconsciousness claimed him. The teleporter fell to his knees. "Please. I have a family. So did your victims." Ghost Rider approached slowly, deliberately. 18 people dead by your hands. You teleported bombs into their homes, into their cars. You killed children. I was paid. I needed the money. My daughter's medical bills. Innocent blood does not wash away with excuses. The final penance stare left 3 unconscious bodies in the alley, their minds shattered by the weight of their own guilt. Ghost Rider turned to the young woman, still pressed against the wall, trembling but unharmed. She stared up at the flaming skull, her photographic memory recording every detail of the supernatural entity before her. But unlike the heroes who'd encountered him with suspicion and hostility, she saw something else in those empty eye sockets. Justice. "You," she stammered. "You saved me." Ghost Rider's flames dimmed slightly, and his voice, still layered with the damned, softened. "The innocent are not my enemies." He glanced at the unconscious men. They will face human justice. Their minds will heal, eventually. But they will never forget what they've done. Mika found her courage. "The hero I worked for, he's part of it too. The corruption. He's been stealing from disaster victims for years." "I know." Ghost Rider could feel the guilt radiating from a penthouse office 12 blocks east. "He will be judged." "Will you kill him?" "I do not kill. I make the guilty face what they are." He moved toward his motorcycle. "Tell your authorities what you witnessed. Give them the evidence. Let human law do its work." He mounted the bike, hellfire erupting from the exhaust. "But know this, if they fail, if corruption buries the truth again, I will return." Before Mika could respond, Ghost Rider tore through the hellfire barrier and vanished into the night, leaving her alone with 3 catatonic criminals, and a story no one would believe. At the Hero Public Safety Commission, alarms were going off. "Second incident confirmed," an analyst shouted. "Same entity, different district. 3 criminals down, all incapacitated by unknown means. No physical injuries, but severe psychological trauma. They're non-responsive." President Yamamoto felt the situation spiraling out of control. Pattern. Unknown. First target was Endeavor, a hero. Second was 3 quirk-enhanced criminals working for... Oh no. Report. The analyst's face went pale. They work for Shine Hero Luminary. Top 15 hero. His agency handles disaster relief fundraising. Yamamoto understood immediately. If those criminals talked, if they revealed connections to a top hero's corruption, the entire hero society's credibility would take a catastrophic hit. The public's faith in heroes was already fragile after All Might's retirement. This could shatter it completely. We need to contain this entity now. What's our asset deployment? Every available hero in Muzutafu is searching, but we can't track it. It appears, attacks, and vanishes. No pattern, no warning. Then we make it come to us. Yamamoto pulled up a secure channel. "Get me Hawks. If anyone can draw out and assess this threat, it's him." But even as she gave the order, doubt gnawed at her. Hawks was the number 2 hero, incredibly capable, but Endeavor had been number 1, and he'd been reduced to a broken, confessing mess. What made her think anyone could stop this thing? The truth she didn't want to acknowledge. Maybe they couldn't. Maybe, for the first time in modern hero society, they were facing something that couldn't be defeated with quirks, training, or numbers. They were facing divine retribution. And retribution didn't negotiate. Hawks received the Commission's priority summons while perched atop Tokyo Tower. His crimson wings spread wide as he surveyed the city below. The number 2 hero had been monitoring the situation since the first reports of the flaming entity. His network of feather sensors scattered across multiple districts, feeding him real-time data that the Commission's tech couldn't match. He'd watched Endeavor's breakdown through leaked footage, seen the 3 criminals left catatonic in an alley, tracked the entity's impossible movements through witness reports and thermal anomalies. And unlike the commission, Hawks had done his homework. "Yamamoto-san," he responded through his earpiece, his tone casual despite the severity. "Let me guess, you want me to find our flaming friend and have a chat? We need immediate threat assessment and containment options." The president's voice was strained. "This entity has already compromised our #1 hero and exposed criminal connections to a top 15 agency. Every minute it remains active is another potential disaster." Hawks watched a news helicopter circle below, trying to get footage of hero patrols. "With respect, ma'am, I don't think containment is an option here." "Explain." "I've been cross-referencing the visual data with international hero databases and folklore archives. That thing matches descriptions from Western supernatural mythology, specifically something called a spirit of vengeance. If the legends are accurate, it's not a quirk user. It's not even fully physical." Silence on the line. "Then, you're telling me we're dealing with a ghost?" "I'm telling you we're dealing with something that operates on rules we don't understand. It judged Endeavor and found him guilty. It protected a civilian from corruption-linked criminals. There's a pattern, but it's not villain behavior. It's vigilante justice with a supernatural twist. Vigilantism is illegal. So is domestic abuse, embezzlement, and murder." Hawks's voice hardened slightly. "Ma'am, I watched Endeavor's confession. If even half of what he said is true, that thing didn't attack an innocent hero. It punished a child abuser who happened to have a hero license." Another pause. Hawks could imagine Yamamoto's expression, the careful calculation, the weighing of public perception against actual justice. "Your orders stand," she finally said. "Locate the entity. Attempt communication. Assess threat level. And Hawks, be careful. We can't afford to lose our #2. "Understood." He cut the connection and spread his wings. "But you might want to ask yourself, ma'am, what happens when the entity assesses you?" Ghost Rider found his next target in the exclusive Sky Garden district, where the wealthiest heroes and their families lived behind reinforced walls and state-of-the-art security. Shine Hero. Luminary's penthouse occupied the top 3 floors of the district's centerpiece tower. Awards and commendations lined the walls. Photos with celebrities and politicians. A carefully curated image of heroic perfection. But images meant nothing to the spirit of vengeance. He could see through walls, through flesh, straight to the rotting soul beneath. The motorcycle roared up the side of the building, defying gravity and physics, as Hellfire propelled it vertically along the glass exterior. Security systems screamed alerts. Armed guards scrambled. None of it mattered. Ghost Rider crashed through the penthouse window in an explosion of shattered glass and twisted metal. Luminary, real name Takeshi Hikaru, age 43, quirk, light manipulation, was in his office when the skull-faced demon entered his sanctuary. He'd been expecting this, had armed himself with cutting-edge support gear designed to counter energy-based quirks. His body glowed with condensed light, ready to unleash attacks that could blind and burn. "I don't know what you are," Luminary said, his voice projecting the confidence that had made him a top hero, "but you've made a mistake coming here. I'm not some broken, has-been like Endeavor. I'm—" Ghost Rider's chain wrapped around his throat mid-sentence, yanking him off his feet and slamming him into his desk hard enough to crack the expensive imported wood. "You are a thief." The spirit of vengeance's voice dripped with condemnation. "You took money meant for disaster victims. Families who lost everything. Children left homeless. And you bought penthouses and cars and built an empire on their suffering." Luminary struggled, his light-based attacks washing over Ghost Rider uselessly. The Hellfire didn't react to photons, didn't care about wavelengths or intensity. It was beyond physics. "I donated millions to charity." Luminary gasped. "I saved hundreds of lives." "With one hand you saved them. With the other, you stole from thousands more." Ghost Rider pulled him closer, skull to face. "You smiled for cameras while families starved. You accepted awards while using their pain for profit. You are not a hero. You are a parasite wearing a cape. The Commission knows." They approved everything. I followed the rules. Rules written by the corrupt to protect the corrupt. Ghost Rider's eye sockets blaze brighter. But there is a higher law. A law that weighs souls, not bank accounts. And you have been found wanting. Please. I'll give it back. All of it. I'll confess. You will. Ghost Rider's grip tightened. But first, you will understand what you've done. The penance stare began. Luminary experienced every family he'd stolen from. Every child who went hungry because relief funds were diverted. Every parent who watched their sick child suffer because medical aid never arrived. Every elderly victim who died in the cold because reconstruction money went to his offshore accounts instead of rebuilding homes. Hundreds of victims. Thousands of moments of suffering. All of it flooding through him simultaneously, an ocean of pain with nowhere to drain. When Ghost Rider released him, Luminary collapsed like a puppet with cut strings, sobbing uncontrollably. Not the calculated tears of a PR scandal, but genuine, soul-deep anguish. Make it stop, he whimpered. Please make it stop. It will never stop. Ghost Rider stood over him. You will carry their pain for the rest of your life. Every moment of joy will be haunted by what you've done. That is your sentence. That is your penance. He turned to leave, but froze. His supernatural senses detected something new. Not guilt, but calculation, strategy, and power approaching fast. Hawks landed on the shattered window frame. His wings spread in a display of non-aggression, hands visible and empty. His usual carefree expression was replaced with something more serious, more genuine. That's far enough, I think, Hawk said calmly. You've made your point with 3 targets. Time we had a conversation. Ghost Rider's skull turned to face him, hellfire dancing in the space between them. You are different. I sense no guilt worthy of judgment. Appreciate that. Hawks stepped carefully into the room, his feathers twitching with readiness despite his casual posture. But I got questions, and you got a city full of heroes who are about to make some very bad decisions try and stop you. So how about we talk before things get messy? Behind Ghost Rider, Luminary continued sobbing, his mind broken by the weight of his own sins. His hero career was over, his reputation destroyed, and most importantly, his victims would finally see justice. But Hawks was right about one thing. The Hero Society wouldn't accept this lying down. They couldn't let a supernatural entity dispense justice without their control, which meant escalation was inevitable. Ghost Rider studied the winged hero, weighing his words against his soul. Hawks's sins were minor, necessary compromises in a complex world, nothing that demanded judgment. But he served a system that protected the guilty. That made him an obstacle. Talk then. Ghost Rider's voice rumbled. But choose your words carefully, hero. I have killed no one, harmed no innocent. Yet your commission seeks to stop me from punishing the guilty. Ask yourself why. Hawks's expression didn't change, but his wings tensed slightly. This was going to be more complicated than he'd hoped. And somewhere in the commission bunker, Yamamoto was already deploying her next move, one that would force the spirit of vengeance into a confrontation he couldn't ignore. Hawks kept his posture relaxed, but every fiber of his hero training was analyzing the entity before him. The flaming skull tracked his movements with perfect precision. The hellfire never flickered or wavered. And those chains, they moved with a life of their own, coiling and uncoiling like serpents waiting to strike. I'm not here to stop you, Hawks said carefully. I'm here because people are scared, confused, and making bad decisions based on incomplete information. So help me understand, what are you, and what do you want? Ghost Rider's skull tilted, considering. Most heroes had attacked on sight or demanded his surrender. This one was actually listening. Rare. I am the Ghost Rider, the spirit of vengeance. I punish the guilty and protect the innocent. The multi-layered voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. I did not ask to come to this world, but I am here, and I will not ignore the sins I see. Sins like Endeavor's abuse, like Luminary's theft, like those criminals in the alley. Hawks nodded slowly. You're not targeting heroes specifically. You're targeting anyone guilty of major crimes, regardless of their public status. Correct. Then we might have common ground. I'm not a fan of corruption either. But here's the problem. Hawks gestured toward the broken luminary, still sobbing on the floor. You're destroying people's minds. That's torture, legally speaking. And torture, even of the guilty, is something hero society can't tolerate. I show them the truth of what they've done, the pain they've caused. They experience their victims' suffering, so they understand the weight of their sins. Ghost Riders, flames burn brighter. Is that not justice? To make them truly comprehend their crimes. It's punishment without trial, without due process, without any chance for them to defend themselves or face a jury of their peers. A jury that can be bought? Lawyers that twist truth into lies? A system that protects the powerful and crushes the weak. Ghost Rider took a step forward. I have seen your society, hero. Your justice is flawed, corrupt. Endeavor abused his family for years, and your commission did nothing. This man, he gestured at Luminary, stole from disaster victims, and your system approved it. Where was your due process for his victims? Hawks had no good answer for that. Because Ghost Rider was right. You're not wrong, Hawks admitted. The system has cracks. Big ones. But breaking people's minds isn't how we fix it. We need reform, oversight, accountability. Words. Ghost Rider's voice dripped with contempt. I have heard such words across dimensions, across centuries. Words change nothing. Action does. Fear does. When the guilty know they will face true justice, perhaps then they will choose differently. Or they'll just get better at hiding. Hawks's wings spread slightly. Look, I get it. You see evil, you punish it. Simple. Clean. But humans are complicated. Endeavor is guilty of terrible things, but he's also trying to change. Does he deserve a chance at redemption or just eternal suffering? Redemption is earned through accepting one's sins and making amends. The penance stare does not prevent redemption. It makes it possible by forcing acknowledgement of truth. Before Hawks could respond, his earpiece crackled. Yamamoto's voice, tense and urgent. Hawks, we have a situation. The League of Villains is moving. They're converging on your location. Hawks's eyes widened. How many? Multiple signatures. Shigaraki, Dabi, Toga, and others. They're treating this entity as either a recruitment opportunity or a threat to eliminate. Ghost Rider's skull turned toward the window, sensing what was coming before it arrived. Villains approach. I can feel their malice. Yeah, well, they're about to make this whole situation a lot worse. Hawks's feathers detached, forming a defensive perimeter. Any chance you're willing to work with heroes just this once? Because if the League gets involved, civilians are going to get hurt. Ghost Rider considered this. The League of Villains. Their sins burned like beacons in the night. Murderers. Terrorists. Those who reveled in chaos and suffering. They were exactly the kind of guilty souls that demanded judgment. I will stop them, Ghost Rider declared. Not for your commission. Not for your system. But because they are guilty, and the guilty must face justice. Works for me. Hawks grinned, though his eyes remained serious. Just try not to permanently break their brains, yeah? We actually need them alive for questioning. I make no promises. The first attack came through the wall. Dabi's blue flames erupted in a massive blast that would have incinerated a normal room. Ghost Rider stood unflinching as the quirk-based fire washed over him, completely ineffective against hellfire made manifest. Hawks dodged, his wings carrying him clear of the blast. New player in town. Dabi stepped through the hole he'd created, his scarred face twisted in a manic grin. And here I thought I was the only one who could make Dad cry. We should compare notes. Behind him, the rest of the League emerged. Shigaraki Tamaki, his hands twitching with barely restrained decay. Toga Himiko, knives gleaming in her hands, eyes wide with fascination. Twice, already arguing with himself about whether this was a good idea. Mr. Compress, adjusting his mask with theatrical flair. A spirit of vengeance, supposedly. Shigaraki's voice rasped through the hand covering his face. The hero society is already tearing itself apart trying to stop you. That makes you useful or dangerous? We're here to find out which. Ghost Rider's chains materialized, wreathed in hellfire. You are murderers, terrorists. You have killed innocents and reveled in their suffering. You are exactly the kind of evil I was created to punish. Created? Interesting. Shigaraki tilted his head. But you've got it backwards. We're not evil, we're liberators. Hero Society is the evil, and we're tearing it down. You seem to agree with us, judging by what you did to Endeavor. I punished an abuser. You murder for ideology and call it liberation. We are not the same. Toga giggled, spinning a knife between her fingers. But you're so interesting. You made the mean hero cry. Can I have some of your blood? I want to be you for a while. Hawks positioned himself between the League and Ghost Rider. Feathers ready. League, stand down. This isn't your fight. Actually, it is. Dobby's flames ignited again, hotter this time. See, this flaming skull knows things about heroes. Dirty secrets. And I'm very interested in secrets. His grin widened. Especially secrets about a certain #1 hero who used to be my dear old dad. Ghost Rider's attention focused on Dobby with sudden intensity. The spirit of vengeance saw beyond the scars, beyond the quirk, straight to the soul beneath. And he recognized something. Toya Todoroki. The name hung in the air like a death sentence. Dobby's flame sputtered. What did you just call me? You are Endeavor's son. The one he broke. The one who burned himself alive trying to earn his father's love. Ghost Rider's voice held something almost like sympathy. You did not die. You survived. And now you seek to destroy the hero who destroyed you. The room went silent. Shigaraki's head snapped toward Dobby. You're related to Endeavor? Hawks's eyes widened. Toya Todoroki was reported dead years ago. Dobby's expression twisted between rage and shock. How the hell do you know that? I judged your father. I lived his memories. I felt his guilt over your death. Ghost Rider stepped forward. But you are not dead, Toya. You are here. Broken. Angry. Seeking revenge against a system that failed you. Don't call me that. Dobby's flames exploded outward in a wave of blue fire. Toya died in those flames. I'm Dobby now, and I'm going to burn everything that bastard built to the ground. Then you are no better than him. Ghost Rider's words cut through the flames. He hurt you, so you hurt others. He broke you, so you seek to break the world. You have become what you hate. Shut up. Shut up. Dobby launched himself at Ghost Rider in a suicidal charge. Blue flames reaching temperatures that could melt steel. The spirit of vengeance caught him mid-flight, one hand around his throat, hellfire meeting quirk fire in a spectacular collision of supernatural and genetic power. And for the first time in years, Toya Todoroki felt pain from fire. Hellfire could hurt him where normal flames couldn't. You are guilty of murder, Ghost Rider intoned. But you are also a victim. The question is, which truth defines you? The rest of the League moved to help their teammate, but Hawks was faster. His feathers formed a barrier, keeping them back as Ghost Rider held Dobby. Everyone stop. Hawks shouted. This doesn't have to end in a fight. But it was already too late for that. Shigaraki's hand touched the floor, and decay began to spread. The entire floor began to crumble. Shigaraki's decay quirk spread like cancer through the building's foundation, disintegrating concrete, steel, and glass with terrifying efficiency. The penthouse and everything in it started to collapse into dust. Everyone out. Now. Hawks's feathers grabbed Luminary's unconscious body and propelled him toward the shattered window. Twice, compress. Get your people clear unless you want to fall 50 stories. We're not going anywhere. Shigaraki's voice was manic, his hand still pressed to the floor as more of the building dissolved. If this thing won't join us, it dies here. Ghost Rider released Dobby, who stumbled back clutching his throat where hellfire had burned through his scarred skin. Actual injury from fire for the first time since his quirk awakened. The spirit of vengeance turned his attention to Shigaraki, even as the floor beneath him turned to dust. He didn't fall. Ghost Rider stood on empty air, Hellfire forming a solid platform beneath his feet, defying gravity and physics as the penthouse disintegrated around him. His motorcycle roared to life behind him, equally suspended in nothingness, waiting for its rider. "Your quirk destroys matter," Ghost Rider observed, his voice cutting through the chaos of collapsing building. "But I am not entirely matter. I am spirit, vengeance given form. You cannot decay what was never truly alive." Shigaraki's eyes widened behind Father's hand. "Impossible." "Retreat." Mr. Compress was already turning his allies into marbles, preparing to escape. "This entity is beyond our current capabilities." Twice grabbed Dobby, who was still clutching his burned throat in shock. "We need to go. No, we need to finish this." His split personality argued even as he pulled Dobby toward the emergency exit. Toga hesitated, staring at Ghost Rider with fascination even as the building crumbled. "But he's so interesting. He knows secrets about everyone." Hawks swooped in, grabbing Toga with his talons and pulling her away from the decay zone. "Interesting doesn't matter if you're dead. Move." The League scattered, using Kurogiri's warp gates that appeared at the last second, pulling them to safety as the top 3 floors of the luxury tower collapsed into rubble and dust. Dozens of civilians in lower floors were screaming, evacuating, scrambling to escape the structural failure. And Ghost Rider saw it all. The innocent in danger because of villains' recklessness and heroes' inability to contain the situation. His purpose crystallized. The motorcycle launched forward, and Ghost Rider tore through the collapsing building at impossible speed. His chains lashed out, wrapping around support beams that hadn't yet decayed, Hellfire welding them together with supernatural strength. He couldn't save the penthouse, but he could slow the collapse long enough for people to escape. Hawks saw what he was doing and joined in, his feathers forming structural supports, carrying injured civilians, creating paths through the rubble. "You're helping them," Hawks called out, surprise evident in his voice. "You actually care about the innocent. Always." Ghost Rider's voice was strained, not from physical effort, but from channeling Hellfire through so many chains simultaneously. "I punish the guilty. I protect the innocent. That is my nature, my purpose." For 5 critical minutes, a hero and a spirit of vengeance worked together to prevent a catastrophe. Civilians were evacuated. The collapse was controlled. And when the dust finally settled, the building's top floors were gone, but no innocent lives had been lost. Ghost Rider stood in the rubble, his Hellfire dimming slightly. Hawks landed nearby, wings folded, breathing hard. "You could have just left," Hawks said quietly. "Let the building fall, let chaos reign. That would have helped you. More guilt for heroes to answer for, more corruption exposed. But you stayed and saved people. I am vengeance, not evil." Ghost Rider turned his skull toward the winged hero. "I do not punish innocents to make a point. I am not a villain, hero. I am what your society refuses to be, truly just." "Then help us fix it." Hawks took a step closer, his expression earnest. "Not through fear and broken minds, but through actual change. Work with the heroes who want reform. Expose the corruption legally. Give people like me the evidence we need to clean house from within." Ghost Rider considered this. For a moment, it seemed like he might actually agree. Then his supernatural senses screamed warning. "They come," he said, looking toward the sky. Hawks followed his gaze and cursed. "Oh, you've got to be kidding me." Descending from the clouds were dozens of heroes, top rankers, military-grade support equipment, and leading them all was someone Hawks had hoped would stay out of this. Best Jeanist recently returned from his injuries, his fiber quirk already extending thousands of threads through the air like a massive net. Behind him, Edshot, Kemu Woods, MT Lady, Ryukyu, and at least 20 other professional heroes, all armed and authorized for maximum force containment. The Hero Public Safety Commission had deployed everything. Unidentified entity. Best Jeanist's voice boomed through amplification equipment. "You are under arrest for vigilante activity, assault on pro-heroes, and terrorism. Surrender immediately, or we will use lethal force." Terrorism. Hawks shouted up at them. He just helped me save 50 civilians. Stand aside, Hawks. That's an order from the Commission President herself. Ghost Rider's chains materialized, longer and more numerous than before. His hellfire blazed brighter, painting the rubble-strewn street in orange and crimson light. I have killed no one, Ghost Rider stated, his voice carrying to every hero present. I have harmed no innocent. I have only punished the guilty, those your system protects. And for this, you declare me a terrorist. You've committed acts of psychological torture, Best Jeanist countered, his threads beginning to weave through the air in preparation for capture. You've disrupted public order. You've operated outside the law. That makes you a villain, regardless of your stated intentions. Then your law is unjust. That's not for you to decide. The standoff held for 3 heartbeats. Then Ed's shot moved. The ninja hero compressed his body to thread width and shot toward Ghost Rider at supersonic speed, aiming to pierce through the entity's form and disrupt whatever quirk or technology was maintaining it. He passed through Ghost Rider like he wasn't there. Because in that moment, Ghost Rider shifted, became more spirit than physical, allowing the attack to pass harmlessly through his form. Then he solidified, grabbed Ed's shot by the throat as the hero emerged from his compressed state, and looked into his eyes. You are not guilty of great sins, Ghost Rider observed, but you serve those who are. He threw Ed's shot into Kamui Woods, both heroes tumbling in a tangle of limbs and wooden branches. All units engage. Best Jeanist commanded. 20 heroes attacked simultaneously. MT Lady grew to her gigantification form, her massive fist descending toward Ghost Rider. He caught it, actually caught the punch of a 50-foot woman, and hellfire spread up her arm. Not burning, but forcing her to feel the guilt of every time she'd prioritized property damage bills over civilian safety. She screamed and collapsed. Ryukyu transformed into her dragon form, breathing a torrent of flame. Ghost Rider rode his motorcycle directly up the flame stream, using it like a ramp, and crashed into the dragon's head. The pennant stare lasted 3 seconds before the dragon fell from the sky, Ryukyu reverting to human form and weeping uncontrollably. Kamui Woods tried to bind him with massive wooden constructs. The hellfire chains shredded through them like paper. Best Jeanist threads wrapped around Ghost Rider from every angle, thousands of fiber strands attempting to crush and contain him. For a moment, it seemed to work. The spirit of vengeance was bound, immobilized. Then the hellfire erupted. The threads didn't just burn. They disintegrated into ash before they could burn. Best Jeanist's quirk simply ceased to function near the supernatural flames. The hero fell back, shocked. This is impossible, Best Jeanist muttered. No quirk should be able to. I am not a quirk. Ghost Rider's voice thundered across the battlefield, silencing all combat. I am the Ghost Rider. I am judgment. And you, all of you, protect a system that allows child abuse, theft, corruption, and murder to flourish unchecked. You call yourselves heroes while the guilty hide behind hero licenses and the innocent suffer. He swept his arm across the assembled heroes, hellfire trailing in its wake. Endeavor tortured his family for years. Where were you? Luminary stole from disaster victims. Where were you? How many more guilty souls wear hero costumes in your society? How many crimes have you ignored because the criminals had the right connections, the right public image, the right ranking? No one had an answer. Hawks stepped between Ghost Rider and the other heroes, wings spread in a gesture of mediation. He's right. We all know he's right. The question is, are we going to keep fighting, or are we going to listen? Best Jeanist's expression was troubled, but his duty was clear. The law is the law, Hawks. We can't just allow. The law failed Shoto Todoroki. Ghost Rider interrupted. Failed Rei Todoroki. Failed Toya Todoroki. Failed thousands of victims, while heroes posed for cameras and collected paychecks. Your law is broken, hero. And I am what happens when the broken can break no more. The spirit of vengeance mounted his motorcycle. I leave you with a choice, he declared. Fix your system. Hold the guilty accountable, regardless of their status. Create true justice. His hellfire blazed. Or I will return, And next time, I will judge not just individuals, but the entire commission that protects them. Before anyone could respond, Ghost Rider launched skyward, his motorcycle defying gravity as hellfire propelled him into the night sky. The assembled heroes tried to follow, but he was simply gone, vanished as if he'd never existed. The battlefield fell silent except for the sobbing of heroes who'd faced the pen and stare. And in that silence, every hero present was forced to confront an uncomfortable truth. The spirit of vengeance had won without killing anyone. He'd exposed corruption, protected civilians, and defeated Japan's top heroes without taking a single life. And that terrified them more than any villain ever could. 3 days after the spirit of vengeance disappeared, Japan's hero society teetered on the edge of collapse. The Commission's attempted cover-up had lasted approximately 6 hours before the dam broke. Too many witnesses, too many videos, too many heroes who'd faced the pen and stare and couldn't keep silent about what they'd seen, what they'd felt. Endeavor's confession went viral despite every attempt to suppress it. Audio recordings of him breaking down, admitting to child abuse, domestic violence, and driving his wife to madness spread across social media like wildfire. The #1 hero's pristine image shattered overnight. Luminary's financial crimes were exposed by the young woman Ghost Rider had saved. With 3 catatonic enforcers as evidence and paper trails she'd preserved, the case was airtight. His hero license was revoked. Criminal charges filed. A top 15 hero fallen in disgrace. But the real earthquake came from an unexpected source. Dabi, revealed to be Toya Todoroki, released a video message that confirmed Ghost Rider's accusations. The scarred villain told his story. The abuse, the obsessive training, the neglect, the desperate attempt to prove his worth that ended in flames and presumed death. He'd survived barely, and the hatred had transformed him into what he was now. The spirit of vengeance judged my father, Dabi said in the video, his voice raw with emotion. And for the first time in my life, someone actually made him answer for what he did. Not the commission, not the heroes, not the system that's supposed to protect children. A supernatural entity from another world had to appear just to give the Todoroki family justice. The implications were devastating. If Hero Society couldn't police its own, if it took a literal spirit of divine judgment to hold heroes accountable, then what good was the system? In a secure hospital room, Enji Todoroki sat alone. His flames were extinguished, his hero costume stored away, his ranking stripped pending investigation. He stared at his hands that had struck his son, grabbed his wife, pushed his children beyond breaking points, and saw them differently now. He saw them as Shoto had seen them, as Rei had seen them, as Toya had seen them. The pen and stare had done something no amount of self-reflection or therapy could have accomplished. It had forced him to truly understand what he was. Not what he told himself he was. Not what he convinced himself was necessary. But what he actually was. A monster. The door opened. Shoto stepped inside, his expression carefully neutral. He hadn't visited in 3 days, and Endeavor hadn't expected him to come at all. Shoto, Endeavor's voice cracked. Don't. Shoto's dual-colored eyes were cold. I didn't come here for apologies. I came because I need to understand something. Anything. That thing, Ghost Rider, it judged you. Made you feel everything we felt. All the pain, all the fear, all the years of abuse. Shoto stepped closer. Did it change anything? Or are you just sorry you got caught? Endeavor wanted to protest, to insist he'd been trying to change before Ghost Rider appeared, but the pen and stare had burned away his ability to lie to himself. It changed everything, he said quietly. I thought I understood what I'd done. I thought acknowledging it and trying to be better was enough. But I didn't understand. Not really. Not until. He closed his eyes and tears fell. Not until I felt what you felt. What your mother felt. What Toya felt. Toya's alive. Shoto's voice was flat. He's Dabi. He's a villain. And that's your fault too. I know. Mom's still in that hospital because of you. I know. Fuyumi and Natsuo's childhoods were destroyed because you saw us as experiments, not children. I know. Endeavor looked up at his son, This boy he'd broken and rebuilt according to his own twisted vision. I know all of it now. And I can't. I can't undo any of it. I can't give you back your childhood. I can't bring Toya back from whatever darkness I pushed him into. I can't heal your mother's mind or erase Fuyumi's loneliness or Natsuo's hatred. Then what can you do? Endeavor had no answer. What could he do? Step down from hero work? He'd already been suspended. Apologize? Words meant nothing against years of abuse. Die. That would just be escaping responsibility. I don't know, he admitted. But I need to try. Not to redeem myself. I don't deserve redemption. But because the people I hurt deserve whatever amends I can make, however inadequate they are. Shoto studied his father for a long moment. The spirit of vengeance didn't kill you. It could have. It was powerful enough. But it left you alive, left you with the knowledge of what you'd done. He turned toward the door. I think that was the point. Death would have been too easy. Living with it, truly understanding it, that's the real judgment. Shoto, I'm not ready to forgive you. I might never be ready. But, he paused at the door. If you're serious about making amends, start with Mom. She deserves better than being locked away while you figure out your guilt. The door closed, leaving Endeavor alone with his thoughts and the phantom sensation of the penance stare. A sensation he knew would never fully fade. At UA High School, an emergency faculty meeting was in session. Principal Nizu stood before the assembled teachers, his expression more serious than most had ever seen. The appearance of this Ghost Rider entity has fundamentally challenged our understanding of justice, heroism, and accountability. We need to address this with our students before misinformation and fear take root. The kids are already talking, President Mike said, his usual enthusiasm subdued. They've seen the videos. They know what happened to Endeavor. Some are scared. Some are impressed. Impressed. Aizawa's voice was sharp. By vigilante torture? By accountability, Midnight corrected quietly. These students have grown up seeing heroes protected by PR teams and commission lawyers. They've watched scandals get buried, abuse get excused, corruption get overlooked, all in the name of maintaining public faith in heroes. Ghost Rider didn't play those games. He just judged, which is exactly the problem. All Might spoke from his seat, his skeletal form hunched with concern. If young people begin to believe that supernatural punishment is more just than our legal system, we lose the foundation of hero society. We become no better than vigilantes ourselves. Perhaps we already were, Nizu said softly. Ghost Rider exposed something we've all known but refused to address. Our system protects the powerful and fails the vulnerable. Endeavor's abuse was an open secret among top heroes. Luminary's corruption had been investigated and buried twice before. How many other open secrets are we harboring? The room fell silent. So what do we do? 13 asked. How do we teach our students to be heroes when the definition of hero is being questioned? We teach them what we should have been teaching all along, Aizawa said, standing. That being a hero isn't about rankings or publicity or power. It's about protecting people, all people, even from other heroes when necessary. We teach them that accountability matters more than reputation. That justice applies to everyone, not just villains. And if Ghost Rider returns? Snipe asked. Then we hope, Nizu replied, that we've done enough to make his judgment unnecessary. Because he judges, Dabi spoke from a corner, his hand still bandaged from a hellfire burn, the only fire that had ever hurt him. He looks at you and sees everything you've done, everything you are. No hiding, no lying, just truth. Shigaraki finally looked up from the screen. He's powerful, immune to quirks, able to break heroes' minds without killing them. His scratching intensified. But he has a code. He protects innocence, punishes the guilty. That's a weakness. How is that a weakness? Mr. Compress asked. Because it means he can be predicted, manipulated. Shigaraki's smile was hidden behind Father's hand, but his voice carried dark amusement. If we want to destroy hero society, we don't need to fight Ghost Rider. We need to make him our unwitting ally. Keep exposing hero corruption. Keep revealing their sins. Let him do what he does best, judge them. And when hero society collapses, Dobby asked, then we rebuild from the ashes. A world where the old hypocrites are gone, where power isn't hidden behind hero licenses and false smiles. Shigaraki stood. Ghost Rider wants justice. We want freedom from hero tyranny. For now, our goals align. But none of them noticed the faint flicker of hellfire in the corner of their hideout. A single ember, watching, listening, judging. Ghost Rider had not left Japan. He was waiting. 1 week after his appearance, President Yamamoto sat in her office, surrounded by damage reports, resignation letters, and public approval polls that had plummeted to historic lows. The Hero Public Safety Commission, the organization that had governed hero society for generations, was in crisis. Calls for reform, for oversight, for accountability echoed from every sector of society. Heroes were demanding investigations into commission practices. Citizens were demanding protection from hero abuse. Politicians were demanding answers. And hanging over all of it was the implicit threat. Fix this, or Ghost Rider will return. Yamamoto stared at a photograph on her desk, taken 20 years ago, when she'd first joined the commission, young and idealistic, believing in heroes and justice, and the power of good to triumph over evil. When had she stopped believing? When had protecting hero society become more important than protecting people? She knew the answer. She'd known for years. But like Endeavor, she'd convinced herself that her choices were necessary, that the greater good justified the compromises, that maintaining stability was worth protecting the guilty. Ghost Rider had proven otherwise. Her intercom buzzed. Ma'am, the Oversight Committee is ready for your testimony. Yamamoto took a breath, straightened her jacket, and stood. She didn't know if she'd survive the coming investigations. Didn't know if the commission would survive. But for the first time in years, she was going to tell the truth, all of it. Because she'd seen what happened to those who didn't. And she had no desire to face the pen and stare. That night, on a rooftop overlooking Mizurufu, Ghost Rider sat astride his motorcycle, watching the city below. He could still feel the guilty souls scattered throughout. Heroes clinging to secrets, villains plotting in darkness, ordinary people carrying the weight of their sins. But something had changed. The fear was still there, but so was something else. Hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, things could be better. That accountability was possible. That justice could exist beyond PR statements and legal loopholes. Ghost Rider had not come to this world by choice. But he had done what he always did. Judge the guilty, protect the innocent, and force society to confront the truth it wanted to ignore. His work here was not finished. It never truly was. But for now he would watch. Wait. And if the heroes of this world failed to reform, if corruption returned, if the innocent were endangered again, he would return. Because vengeance, like justice, was eternal. The motorcycle's engine roared, and Ghost Rider disappeared into the night, leaving only the faint scent of hellfire and the echo of his final words. Asterisk, the guilty will always burn. Asterisk. The spirit of vengeance had come to My Hero Academia's world like a thunderbolt from beyond the stars, uninvited, unstoppable, and undeniable. In a span of 1 week, Ghost Rider had accomplished what years of hero work, commission oversight, and public scrutiny had failed to achieve. He had forced an entire society to look at itself in the mirror and confront the monster staring back. Endeavor, the #1 hero who had built his legacy on the broken bodies and shattered spirits of his own children, now sat in isolation, carrying the weight of every scream, every tear, every moment of terror he'd inflicted. The penitent stare had given him no escape from the truth. He was not a hero who had made mistakes. He was an abuser who had worn a cape. Whether redemption was even possible for someone like him remained an open question, but at least now he understood the full measure of his sins. At least now his victims had been heard, their pain validated not by a courtroom or public opinion, but by divine judgment itself. Luminary's empire of charity fraud had crumbled, exposing the rot at the heart of disaster relief operations. Other heroes, terrified that Ghost Rider might return for them, began quietly settling accounts, making restitution, confessing to crimes they'd thought safely buried. The Hero Public Safety Commission faced investigation after investigation, its authority challenged, its practices questioned, its very existence hanging in the balance. The League of Villains watched from the shadows, calculating how to use this chaos to their advantage. But even they had learned a terrible lesson. Ghost Rider did not discriminate between hero and villain. He judged only guilt and innocence. And every member of the League carried sins that would burn under the penance stare. Students at UA High School debated late into the night about what it meant to be a hero in a world where even the greatest among them could be monsters in disguise. Some were shaken, their faith in the system cracked. Others were energized, seeing an opportunity to build something better from the ruins of the old guard's corruption. And somewhere in a hospital room, Rei Todoroki heard that her husband had finally faced judgment for what he'd done to her, to their children, to their family. She didn't know if she could ever heal from the damage. But for the first time in years, she felt something other than fear and despair. She felt validated. Ghost Rider had not stayed to rebuild what he'd torn down. That was not his purpose. He was vengeance, not salvation. He was the reckoning, not the redemption. He had shown them the truth of their sins, but what they did with that knowledge was entirely up to them. The flaming skull could still be seen occasionally, a glimpse on a distant rooftop, a roar of a supernatural engine in the dead of night, hellfire trails across the sky that vanished as quickly as they appeared. He was watching, waiting, a promise and a threat wrapped in leather and flame. Japan's hero society stood at a crossroads. They could reform, could hold themselves accountable, could build genuine justice from the ashes of their corrupted system. Or they could return to business as usual, bury the scandals, protect the powerful, and pretend that nothing had changed. But if they chose the latter, if they allowed corruption to fester again, if they failed the innocent and protected the guilty, the spirit of vengeance would return. And next time, his judgment would be absolute. The guilty would always burn. That was not a threat. It was a promise. It was the natural law of the universe asserting itself in a world that had forgotten what true justice looked like. Ghost Rider had entered My Hero Academia and judged Endeavor. But in doing so, he had judged them all. Every hero who had looked away from abuse, every official who had buried evidence, every citizen who had prioritized entertainment over ethics. And the verdict was clear. They had been found wanting. Whether they would rise to meet that judgment or fall beneath its weight remained to be seen. But one thing was certain. The world would never forget the week the spirit of vengeance came to Japan and reminded them that some sins could never be hidden, some crimes could never be erased, and some judgments could never be escaped. The age of unchecked hero worship was over. The age of accountability had begun, and it had been written in hellfire.